All right, we have come out of executive session for our finance subcommittee, and the committee has, in executive session, made some decisions. So we are going to vote on a new number to certify for the school budget for fiscal year 20. The number to be certified, and Mrs. Geister, just make sure I read this correctly, is we will be certifying a total amount of $19,786,889. I would take a motion to certify that amount.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I do have a second. For the record, I'll be doing a roll call. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson?
Yes.
Mrs. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal?
Yes.
Mrs. Tripolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mrs. Hughes says yes. We have a unanimous vote for a new certified number. With that, the Finance Committee has finished its business for the day, so I would take a motion to adjourn this particular meeting.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have adjourned the Finance Subcommittee meeting. So, we're going to start this again. If we're ready? Everybody ready? Mm-hmm. Ready? I'd like to call the meeting of the Narragansett Regional School Committee to order, and we will stand once again for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, we are recording this meeting, NRSD in conjunction with the Templeton Community TV, and we provide that recording to both Templeton and Phillipston for the cable access TV networks. We have a very limited and short agenda for the evening. We're here to do our budget certification, plus we have a couple of pieces of ongoing business that we need to address, but we will start with our budget certification. The first thing I would like to just make the body aware of is we are invoking the rule of necessity, which the rule of necessity says that voting members on the committee receive retiree health insurance benefits, and they're still able to vote on the budget per advisories 0505, the rule of necessity. It's a line item. This is an overall budget vote, so anyone who would have a conflict with the line item is still allowed to vote on the overall budget. So we just want to make that people aware. The first budget certification vote number, I would entertain a motion that the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee vote and certify the amount of $19,786,889 for the fiscal year 20 budget.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Mr. Mason, any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson?
Yes.
Mrs. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal?
Yes.
Mrs. Tripolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes. The second motion I would entertain is that the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee vote the estimated income of $10,338,544 for fiscal year 20, which is based on the Chapter 70 and 71 aid from the Governor's House 1 budget submission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
And I have a second. Any discussion? Mr. Mason? Mrs. Mattson?
Yes.
Mrs. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal?
Yes.
Mrs. Tripolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes. I would entertain a motion that the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee vote the assessment to Templeton in the amount of $6,978,408 for fiscal year 20. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a couple seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson?
Yes.
Mrs. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal?
Yes.
Mrs. Tripolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes. I would entertain a motion that the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee vote the assessment to Phillipston in the amount of $1,654,937 for fiscal year 20. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson?
Aye.
Mrs. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mrs. Kojal?
Yes.
Mrs. Tripolo?
Yes.
Mrs. Chartier?
Yes.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes. Okay, so, seeing we have people here who are interested in our, yes, right, in our budget and what we have done and what we have voted on. As you know, your school committee has spent a lot of time reviewing, discussing, and looking at numbers to determine the best way to move this district forward, to contain costs, which is something that our towns have spoken is important, to try and retain community identity, which the towns have also spoken is important. In order to do that, this committee feels it's in the best interest of the district to make some changes to our budget reflected in the amount that we have certified, and that will also result in some changes to the district. In order to accomplish meeting those numbers, we will have to reconfigure, and Phillipston will become a pre-K, K center of excellence. We will run our 1st through 5th grade at Templeton Center. We will maintain a middle school of 6 to 8. We will maintain a high school of 9 to 12. Additionally, in order to meet this number, we will have to make cuts to grades 1 through 5 in the teaching staff, and we will reduce them by 1 teaching position. So that is the summary of the changes that will need to be made in order to support this budget number. As I said, we've spent many, many hours discussing this, and that is the decision of the committee.
Just to clarify, one position
Yes.
for each grade.
So 1 position for each grade, 1 through 5, I'm sorry, yes. So, does any other committee member have any comments they wanted to add?
This was not an easy decision. It was not easy to come to this. I don't know what else to say. It's been a long conversation that we've had, and I know there's a lot of feelings involved, and I get that completely. We've had a lot of feelings involved. This is what we've determined to be best with the situation we're facing.
All right.
Yeah, let me actually add to that as well. Again, very what Vicki said, and what we're really looking at is we actually wanted to take some action and do something before it was just, taken away from our hands and just done, without us. We really tried to think ahead and do, what would be the least problematic to the district.
And one of the biggest concerns I know personally that we had to think about was the possibility of the state coming in and deciding for us and end up moving kids across the district in the middle of the school year, which was a possibility.
And, as your committee, we certified our original number, giving the communities what we heard they wanted 2 years ago. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way at the voting box, and we've had to respond. We said it has not been easy for any of us. We had unlimited funds, the things we could do, so. Okay. So our next piece of business. Our next piece of business is we have some policy updates that we need to implement. I want to give a brief background of the 2 policies that are in question, as well as what the changes are, because what we're trying to do here is the CPR review that was done. The state came in and looked at our policies and procedures and made some recommendations to change 2 of our policies. They're actually fairly minor changes. And what we wanted to do was see if the committee would suspend our normal voting process of first reading, second reading, implementation, based upon what these changes are. So I want to outline them first, then you consider if you're willing to suspend the policy route and see if we can implement these this evening so that we can check that item off of our CPR review, since this is exactly what the state told us they wanted to see in these policies. So you have these policies in your packet. It was also online. The first one was to student discipline. The student discipline policy we had in was fine with the addition of a section under in-school suspension. They wanted some information. It was almost procedural, but they wanted it in our policy, and it states that the principal may use in-school suspension as an alternative to short-term suspension for disciplinary offenses. The principal may impose in-school suspension for disciplinary actions under this provision, provided the principal follows the process set forth in 603 CMR 5310, Section 3. through Section 5, and the student has the opportunity to make academic progress as set forth in 603 CMR 5313, Section 1. The principal shall inform the student of the disciplinary offense charged and the basis for the charge, and provide the student an opportunity to dispute the charges and explain the circumstances surrounding the alleged incident. If the principal determines that the student committed the disciplinary offense, the principal shall inform the student of the length of the student's in-school suspension, which shall not exceed 10 days cumulatively or consecutively in a school year. Number 4, on the same day as the in-school suspension decision, the principal shall make reasonable efforts to notify the parent orally of the disciplinary offense, the reasons for concluding that the student committed the infraction, and the length of the in-school suspension. The principal shall also invite the parent to a meeting to discuss the student's academic performance and behavior, strategies for student engagement, and possible responses to the behavior. Such meeting shall be scheduled on the day of the suspension if possible, and if not, as soon as thereafter as possible. If the principal is unable to reach the parent after making and document at least 2 attempts to do so, such attempts shall constitute reasonable efforts for purpose of orally informing the parent of the in-school suspension. And number 5, the principal shall send written notice to the student and parent about the in-school suspension, including the reason and the length of the in-school suspension, and inviting the parent to a meeting with the principal for the purpose set forth in 603 CMR 5310, Section 4. If such meeting has not already occurred, the principal shall deliver such notice on the day of the suspension by hand delivery, certified mail, first-class mail, email to an address provided by the parent for school communications, or by other method of delivery agreed to by the principal and parent. So that is what has been added. As I said, it's really procedural. I believe this is also in the student handbook as well. This has been added.
Madam Chair, so that's exactly right. They took this section from our handbook and wanted it in the policy itself. So we've added it to the policy.
Okay. So that was the first policy impacted. And the second policy is JICFB, which is bullying prevention. They asked for one section to be added, which they wanted the definition of the school staff to be added so that everyone was clear as who was covered under school staff. And it says, in the context of bullying prevention and intervention, school staff is defined as including, but is not limited to, administrators, advisors to extracurricular activities, athletic coaches, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, clerical employees, custodians, educators, paraprofessionals, and school nurses. School staff may be named the aggressor or perpetrator in a bullying report. So it just put a definition around who could be included as school staff. And then what they also did was modified the language under the definition of bullying. Instead of saying bullying is the repeated use by one or more students, it now says one or more persons. It says it's to the target that has the effect of, so it's some wordsmithing. They took causes and now it says causing physical or emotional harm or of death. Yeah, so they changed the tenses on that, so there was no substantial change. It was a tense change to these bullet points that we have, as well as changing anywhere it said the target, it now says another person. So they've just updated the language. There was no substantial change, and that was the only change in this policy as well. So as I said, what I'd like to do is see if the committee would suspend our policy on having a first and a second reading before we implement, and go right to the second reading, which is where we would vote on implementation. I would entertain a motion to vote on the suspension of that policy.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
and I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? It was unanimous. So I would take a motion to approve, so the second reading and approve, policy JIC student discipline. We'll do them separately in case anyone has any questions. So I would entertain that motion to modify the policy as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have lots of seconds. Any discussions on this?
I have a question. It says the principal. Would the assistant, should we do / assistant principal? Because when I was an assistant principal, I was the one that did that discipline.
Are we bullying? I'm sorry, our student, yeah, obviously
No.
bullying, correct?
Which policy,
The
Debbie?
first one, the student discipline. It says the principal may use, the principal may impose, the principal shall inform.
Yeah, those actions would ultimately be at the hand of the principals, but certainly the principal delegates to the assistant principal.
Okay, just being cautious.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this policy, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, policy has been approved. I would entertain a motion to approve policy JICFB, which is bullying prevention, with the updates as presented. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? That is unanimous. So both policies have now been approved, and we can check those off on our CPR review list. We have a school choice update. Is this, am I passing over this for the time being? Yeah. Okay, we're going to pass over this in lieu of us certifying this budget. We will pass over that. I do have a piece of business that came after the agenda was set, and I wanted to present it to the committee for discussion and hopefully an agreement on how we handle this. I received a communication from the Templeton Select Board. They had a meeting last Wednesday, and the lease on the Templeton Center Elementary School came up. You'll see the letter in front of you. They are requesting that a draft from us for a new lease for the new school at our first convenience and prior to occupancy. Notwithstanding the district agreement, which provides the town is responsible for repairs in excess of $5,000. We'll be keenly interested in your draft positions with respect to the same. My comment on that is that that's an agreement issue. It has nothing to do with the lease, so we can't address that in the lease. Dr. Casavant, do you have any thoughts on?
Why are we coming up with a lease?
On the lease portion?
Yeah,
Well, as we've said, in general, whoever owns something to be leased is usually the one who creates the lease. And so we've spoken, and so once our letter goes to the select board, I believe that they'll turn that over to the legal folks to do something to that effect. I think we agreed to that. I'm sorry.
I believe this regional agreement sets out how that's done and what can and can't be done, so.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about this lease is the regional agreement references a lease, yet
Right.
neither the school district, which I think they burned in the Otter River fire many years ago, or the towns has never been able to produce anything from any historical perspective because they are so old. I think the agreement calls for a 20-year provision and then it auto renews, and so if it was lost and no one can find. So based on that, I would entertain a motion on how to respond to the select board if someone wants to.
I just want,
Yeah.
when they do, the district agreement says that we're leasing this building at no charge.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that, just stating that
Yes.
is important.
Yes. Yep. And the other thing I would add is if we were going to push this back to Templeton, we can probably, if they're looking for model agreements, I'm sure they're out there that we can certainly look to
Right.
provide the help with. We're certainly not the only regional school that has this arrangement with towns, so they are out there and ready to be viewed. So,
But I would think it's very important that this lease get done, because we're going to be
Right.
occupying
Yes.
this
Mr.
in
Terenzini
September.
and I have spoken, obviously, the quicker we craft a letter and send it along, it'll probably put that in motion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, in hearing conversation, I would entertain a motion to ask Dr. Casavant to pen a letter for us on our behalf, which I, as the chair, will sign on behalf of the committee, to ask Templeton to go ahead and come up with a draft of a lease being the lessor, yes, they're the lessor, right, of the buildings, and also let them know that we would be happy to provide any additional information we can. I would entertain a motion as such. So moved. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any discussion, further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion passes unanimously. I believe that is the only other business. We had intended an executive session, but we are tabling that because we are not prepared to go in and discuss the item we had on the table. So hearing that
I'll
with
take
no...
a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? And the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.
Are we going into executive session?
No.